How you doing, good people? This is the 8-Bit Animal. Okay, so today we're not going to talk about an actual game as far as, talking about the mechanics of the game, things like that. But what we are going to talk about is an important event in gaming history that involved probably one of the most popular video games of all time in Street Fighter 2. Now, the 90s, we go back to the 90s in general. The 90s were an important time in video games as far as non-gamers putting their hands in gaming, i.e., Congress having hearings about violence in video games because of Night Trap and Mortal Kombat, things like that. And in particular, game companies suing other game companies, which is what I'm going to talk about today. Street Fighter 2 came out about 1991, 1992 in America and caught on like wildfire. Everyone loved Street Fighter 2. It was, like I said, one of the most popular video games of all time. And as such, not to be outdone, a number of game publishers cashed in on that success with their own fighting games. SNK had the Fatal Fury and Art of Fighting series, which kind of started them on the road to becoming a fighting game publisher. You had Sega with their Eternal Champion series, Midway with Mortal Kombat. The list goes on and on. Some of these fighting games were really good, some weren't. Some were just downright terrible. And then there was Data East, right? Data East entry into the fighting game series, Fighter's History. Fighter's History is, as run-of-the-mill as it was, Fighter's History was notable because it bared an extremely striking resemblance to Street Fighter 2. So much so that Capcom took notice and in October of 1994 took Data East to court. Now, they took them to court over, over the trademarks. They basically said that Data East infringed on their trademarks by making such a similar product. And Capcom actually lost. And that led to Data East releasing two follow-ups to Fighter's History. Fighter's History Dynamite, which was essentially their equivalent of Street Fighter Championship Edition. And Karnoff's Revenge, which was a Neo Geo title. It's also interesting that the most blatant Street Fighter ripoff appeared on the Neo Geo, which was probably SNK was honestly Capcom's biggest competition as far as fighting in the fighting game arena in the arcades at that point. But that's neither here nor there. What it did do though is, Capcom loses this case, so they don't have the right to really defend their intellectual property. If it doesn't say Street Fighter on it, they can't really say that, oh, this company stole our copyright. As such, we got so many more bad fighting games. We had Brutal Paws of Fury from Game Tech, which was a weird anthropomorphic animal fighting game that was pretty, but so broken. We got Rise of the Robots, which you guys know that game makes me itch. Street Combat, which was actually legitimately the worst fighting game that myself and a lot of other people have ever played. Weapons Lord from Namco, which was more a Samurai Showdown ripoff. But because Samurai Showdown was a weapon-based Street Fighter ripoff, there you go. You know, and so many others. Capcom and Data East, that rivalry long past. We see who won it because Data East doesn't exist anymore. So we see who won, but at the same time, who won in the long run, but you know, we see who won that court. We see what happened with that court case and the ramifications of that court case every day in gaming, with people deciding that they want to take other publishers or things like that. It was a wild period in gaming back in the 90s, and Capcom versus Data East was a big part of that. This has been 8-Bit Animal, and I'll catch you beautiful people next time.